Brian buys a house. Rachel rents the exact same house down the street and invests every dollar she doesn't hand to a mortgage. They both walk away certain they made the smarter move. And they're both wrong, because one of them is pouring money into a house he doesn't really own yet, and the other just found a fortune she'll probably never let herself keep. When you run the real numbers over 20 years, the winner is not who you think, and the whole thing flips on one detail almost nobody bothers to check. My name is Nick. Let's keep this dead fair. Brian and Rachel are the same age, earn the same $90,000 a year, live in the same city, and each have $50,000 saved. Same everything. The only difference is what they do one ordinary Tuesday. Brian signs a mortgage, partly because his Uncle Dave has spent a decade insisting that renting is throwing money away. Rachel signs a lease. 20 years later, one of them is right, and the reason is going to sting. Let's start with Brian, because Brian is having the best week of his life. He buys a median American house, which right now runs about $415,000. He puts down 10%, $41,500, and borrows the rest at around 6.5% on a 30-year fixed. His monthly principal and interest come to roughly $2,360. At the closing table, he signs about 40 documents, hands over another $10,000 in closing costs he mostly forgot to budget for, and walks out holding a key. Brian owns something now. He can paint the walls any color he wants, and nobody on earth can tell him to stop. For about a week, he is the happiest man alive. Rachel rents the identical house down the street for $2,000 a month. No down payment. No closing costs, no key ceremony, no 40 documents, no housewarming. She takes the $41,500 that Brian used as a down payment, adds the $10,000 he burned on closing, and drops the whole $51,000 into a boring total market index fund. Then she sets up an automatic transfer for the gap between her rent and what Brian's house truly costs him every month, and she forgets about it. Nobody asks Rachel for a tour. She got a confirmation email. It did not come with a cheese plate, and nobody drove across town to stand in her kitchen holding a bottle of wine and silently judging her countertops. On day one, Brian has a house, a mailbox with his name on it, and a story to tell at dinner. Rachel has that email. It is not close in terms of how it feels, but feelings and math have never once been the same thing, and this is exactly where the gap between them starts opening in a direction nobody at the housewarming would predict. Here's the number everyone stares at. The mortgage payment. $2,360 a month. That's the figure Brian proudly holds up next to Rachel's $2,000 rent, and he smiles, because his payment buys equity and hers just evaporates. There's only one problem with that comparison. The mortgage payment is not what a house costs. The mortgage payment is the down payment on what a house costs. Property taxes, about 1% of the home's value every year, which on Brian's place is another $350 a month, and it climbs every time the county decides his house is worth more. Insurance. Homeowners coverage runs him around $200 a month, and it has jumped almost 50% in 5 years because the weather stopped cooperating and the insurers noticed. Private mortgage insurance. Because Brian put down less than 20%, he pays a monthly penalty for the crime of not already being rich, about $150, until he slowly claws his way to 20% equity years down the road. And then maintenance, the quiet killer. The rule of thumb is 1 to 2% of the house every year, another $300 to $700 a month averaged out, except it never arrives as a tidy monthly bill. It arrives as a water heater that dies in February, and a roof that waits for the worst possible moment and then vanishes $8,000 in a single afternoon. Those big hits aren't bad luck. They're a schedule. Roofs last about 20 years, furnaces about 15, water heaters about 10, and each one is a guaranteed 4- and 5-figure bill with Brian's name already on it. The roof does not care what month it is, the roof has a calendar, and Brian was not invited to the meeting. Funny thing, Uncle Dave's big speech about building equity somehow never once mentioned the roof. Add all of it together, and Brian is not spending $2,300 a month on his house. He's spending closer to $3,400. Rachel's all-in cost is $2,015, renter's insurance